I've trained all the children at my summer camp to come to me whenever I play my recorder. Bunch of 5 to 11-year-olds are just following me wherever I go. I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect time to teach them about trans.
I have so much power and I love it. It's the perfect.
Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. And if you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate your continued support as you help my channel grow, get more subscribers, and have more of these conversations around the issues that I think that we need to be talking about. So we're going to do a little bit of a back to school event on my channel over the next few days to touch on some of the education, legislation, and indoctrination happening in our public school system right now, so that as we're getting our kids ready to go back into the classroom, that we as parents feel a little bit more prepared about things that could potentially just hit us out of nowhere with some of these crazy teachers and some of these crazy laws. I am seeing that some of the biggest issues with parents right now is that so many people don't really pay attention to what's going on. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I just mean that, we're so busy, and a lot of times I think a lot of people think that all of these things are only happening in places like California and Oregon and New York and Chicago and whatever else, that if you live in a red district or you live in a relatively sane district, that you think that you are safe from these things. And nothing could be further from the truth. So we need to just keep talking about these things so that parents are prepared and they don't feel blindsided if their kid comes home and starts talking about pronouns and gender identity and whatever else that they might have sprung on them under your nose. So we're going to go over just some videos and articles this week that just touch on all of those subjects. So according to this article in the Daily Caller, it says an LGBTQ activist organization awarded more than 70 public and charter schools throughout the US and Canada thousands of dollars to promote gender ideology, support Gender Sexuality Alliance or GSA clubs, and put on Pride Week celebrations, according to the group's website. So I have heard numerous parents talk about these clubs being in their school in some form or another. And a lot of times these clubs are labeled something completely different than what they actually are, so that they can hide it from these kids' parents. They'll say, I'm in a chess club, or I'm in some kind of poetry club, or whatever it is. And what it is actually just a front so that these kids can go into these clubs without their parents knowing. And what they're actually doing is learning about gender ideology and all of these, far left radical ideas about your gender being fluid and being able to change and be whatever you want at any time. Thankfully, we have had some brave kids come forward and tell their parents about this stuff, which is how we know that it is happening, because if these guys had their way, none of us would ever know. It would be a complete secret from parents, because apparently a lot of these teachers seem to think that they have more rights over what your child learns than you do. And this is being supported by these activist organizations that are funding these clubs and throwing money into these schools to make sure that these things are happening, and to get them all the resources that they need to make sure your kid is as indoctrinated as possible as they can possibly make happen, even if it is only a few minutes a week. So if you're wondering what a GSA club is and how it might be happening under your nose or behind your back without you knowing, we're gonna have a little look at a video here of this gal who is going to tell us what's going on.
So I run the Pride Club at my school, and I'm having kind of an issue with another teacher in the school building right now. I have a couple kids who have come to me and told me that she has called them out in the middle of class for being gay. She said some pretty terrible things about me and the club, telling kids that she thinks it's stupid and a waste of time.
Because it is stupid and it is a waste of time. And she'll go on to tell you that this is actually happening during class time, which means she's literally robbing kids of an actual education and pulling them away from the time that they need to learn things that are actually beneficial to them, like reading, writing, history, geography, algebra, all of these things. And she's no problem using that valuable lesson time to sit them down and have a private meeting with them about their sexuality, none of which she has a right to be discussing with children. And yes, anybody under the age of 18 is a child. Also, she can create this little following for herself to manipulate these kids into validating her so she can feel better about her confused existence. So I just happen to agree, this is stupid. And not only that, it is destructive and it is dangerous.
and, you know, we're pulling kids out of her class, which technically, yes, you know, we are pulling kids out of the class, but it's only for 30 minutes a week. And
I don't care if it's 5 minutes a week. I don't care if it's 30 seconds a week. You don't have a right to do it. And you don't have a right to take education time away from students, especially without their parents' knowledge. So, yeah.
And it's on Mondays. So the last like 30 minutes of first period, the kids come to me. I understand that, you know, the kids are coming to my class during another class period. I have okayed this with my administration, with my principal, my admin, all that.
Your principal, you, and your admin all should be fired.
Because the kids told me straight up, they were like, we don't want to have it after school just in case, because some of their parents don't know. It would make them feel more comfortable to just, you know, do it at school. That way it's a little more, you know, discreet.
Kids also feel more comfortable if they're allowed to smoke and do drugs at school without their parents knowing. So
it is completely okay with my admin that I am running this club during school hours. And again, it's only 30 minutes a week. However, this teacher is now crossing a line.
She's crossing a line? You're the one that's holding a secret club with children that do not belong to you to talk about their sexuality and keep it from their parents. And not only that, you're reinforcing with these kids that it is okay to do something behind your parents' back, and that it is okay for an adult who is not your parent to tell you to keep something from your parents. And this teacher is the one that's crossing the line? So screwed up.
She is calling out my kids. She is saying extremely homophobic things. She's bashing the community and the club itself. And I'm kind of fed up with it. She literally came to my class and went through every name in her roster to try and get me to out the kids to her, so she knew who was, you know, not straight. So that way.
She probably wanted to know which kids that you were having secret meetings with so that she could hopefully have a conversation with them about what is and is not appropriate behavior between themselves and adults that are not their parents.
You know, she'd have that information, which I did not give her. I would not give her that. I don't really care if she doesn't like me. Whatever. Not my business. I don't particularly care if she doesn't like when the club happens, because that's not her business either, since I okayed it with my admin. But what we're not going to do, we are not going to talk bad about my kids.
First of all, parents, this is just another example of why it is so important for you to communicate with your kids and ask them what they're learning, ask them what they're participating in school, and do so in a way that they feel safe coming to you about it. Because ultimately, it is not their fault if they do get pulled into something like this. These teachers are taking advantage of impressionable kids, which, as their expertise tell them, they are dealing with human beings that are at the most vulnerable, impressionable stages of their development, and they're taking that knowledge and they're abusing it, and they're telling those kids that you are the one that's not safe, and that it's perfectly fine for them to have these conversations with adults that are not their parents and to keep it a secret from their parents. It is perfectly normal for teenagers, for young kids, you know, to be nervous about telling their parents about everything. I know that we've all been there, especially as a teenager. There are things and you're like, I don't know if I really want my parents to know that. But, you know, what these teachers are doing is they're taking that knowledge, knowing that kids would naturally be hesitant to confide in their parents about everything. And again, they are abusing it. It would be like if your kid were to tell you that, or to feel like they were afraid to tell you about a bad grade. These teachers think it would be okay to keep that from you, to change your child's records, to hide it, and hold meetings with other failing students to discuss how they can continue to fail, and to do so without you ever knowing. Instead of doing what we used to expect from teachers, which is to have a partnership with them and to be able to communicate about the things that our kids were struggling with and work together to help them overcome whatever challenges that they were facing. Not to mention, we are only getting one side of this story, so there's no way to know exactly how this other teacher was addressing the situation. We're hearing it from this person here who is telling kids to lie to their parents and to be dishonest about what they're doing and to hide things from people. So can we really trust that she's giving us an honest representation of how this all played out when she has proven herself to be a dishonest person who has no problem influencing kids to be dishonest? I have no doubt that she would call any opposition to this thing homophobic and hurtful. The teacher could be responding in the most loving and kind and respectful way, and I'm not saying that she did, but she could be. But it wouldn't matter. If this teacher expressed any concern for what is happening in this club, this person here would see it as threatening and homophobic and all of the other things that they like to call people. And we do need to address the fact that she's calling these kids her kids. Teachers, these are not your kids, and it really grates on me when teachers say this because they're not yours. They are your students, they're your pupils, they are your class, but they are not yours. And you can see the harm that's coming from teachers who say this because they truly believe that kids in the classroom are theirs, and therefore they can do whatever they want and have just as much right as their parents to instill values and morals in them as if they were the ones that brought them into this world. And just to read a little bit more of this article, it says, throughout 2023, the It Gets Better project has awarded at least 56 US and 15 Canadian public and charter schools with $10,000 each for a total of $625,000 in grants to fund LGBTQ initiatives, according to the organization's website. Some school districts throughout the country are using the grants they received to fund gender transition closets and work with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, a group that describes itself as a leading edge order of queer and trans nuns to take transgender students back to school shopping. And in case we needed a little reminder of who the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are, this is them. And that's enough of that. So yes, they're using they're using people from this organization, which is a blatant anti-Catholic hate group, and that clearly have no boundaries and no morals whatsoever, and they want to send those people back to school shopping with your children. I can only think of one reason that people like that who perform that way would want access to children. I'm just saying. It goes on to say, the group is funding programs and curricula that are inappropriate for children and certainly inappropriate for classrooms in public schools. Erica Stanzi, Director of Operations at Parents Defending Education, PDE, told the Daily Caller News Foundation. The fact that they funded a program for public school to work with the anti-Catholic organization Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence shows that the group is more than willing to work with those who practice bigotry against Americans who think and believe differently from them. Impact Academy of Arts and Technology, a charter school in California, was awarded a grant to work with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to host a back-to-school shopping event for transgender and non-binary students. The It Gets Better project states. The charter school is also using the grant to create a gender transitioning wardrobe and host an LGBTQ plus community day. EC Glass High School in Lynchburg, Virginia, plans to use its grant to promote its Gender Sexuality Alliance Club to create a safe room, the LGBTQ organization's website states. The funds will also be used to purchase more LGBTQ books for the school library. Oh, good. Just goes on to list a few more schools and what they plan to do with these grants. At the end of this article, it says, at the head of Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, GLSEN, which has received large donations from Target. So this is your daily reminder to continue to boycott Target and to not shop there, because every time you make a purchase there, money is going towards this network and funding legislation and these activist groups to go directly against you as a parent. Anyway, it says, as the head of Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, GLSEN, noted in a recent interview with Politico, GSAs and other student clubs where young people can practice leadership are a key pillar of activist engagement with children in schools. Nicole Neely, president of PDE, told the DCNF. It Gets Better is one of the many programs that exist in K through 12 schools, and families deserve to know both about their existence and the source of the funding. It's ironic that they say that they're going to fund safe rooms, because nothing about this is safe whatsoever, especially when you're involving groups like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. But when you have people teaching your kids to keep secrets, and they want to bring in sexually explicit performers to be mentors in their lives. All of this is absolutely insane, which is why it is so much more, that much more important to stay in the loop with your kids, communicate with them, have conversations with them, age appropriate conversations with them about the things that are happening and that they might be exposed to, and to come to you with anything that their teacher says or does, or anybody in their school atmosphere that they have questions about or that doesn't sit quite right with them. Because a lot of things that, what's happening with kids as they're being further indoctrinated into this stuff is they do lose that sense of conscience. They do lose that sense of listening to their inner voice that tells them whether or not something is right or wrong, because when they're exposed to this stuff, that line gets very, very blurry. And a lot of things that, a few years ago we all agreed were abhorrent for children have been normalized, and it can be very difficult for them to make that differentiation, especially when people like this are just popping in there and trying to normalize this stuff with them. So let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please hit that like button and also subscribe. Both things cost you absolutely nothing and are huge supports to my channel. And I will see you in the next back to school video.